Number 932, Indonesia long-term strategy for low carbon and climate resilience 2050. Indonesia LTS LCCR 2050. Energy sector is the second main contributor of emission after FOLU. The GHG emitting activities are power generation, transportation, passengers and flight, energy use in industry and building, and residential and commercial. The amount of GHG emissions depends on the magnitude and type of energy sources, which in turn depends on GHG mitigation measures. The mitigation option in energy sector includes energy efficiency measures in the subsectors, substitution of fossil fuel by renewable in power generation and transport, and electrification of end use in building and in transportation must be accompanied by decarbonization of electricity. Past development that primary energy from 20 to 2019 increased at a moderate average rate 2.6% per year. A significant decrease of energy supply in 2008 was due to global finance crisis. Figure 8 shows some notable development of biofuel, crude palm oil based or CPO based in the past 5 years as a result of biofuel policy, which include price subsidy using budget collected from the biofuel feedstock producer. Example, the palm oil industry. There were some notable increase in geothermal and hydropower. However, the share of fossil energy remained very dominant. The biomass energy shown in the figure 8 is traditional biomass used in rural residential. This is 2019, and the coal and oil and natural gas is a major. The primary energy is used to produce final energy such as electricity and oil fuels and refinery products. These final energy is used by energy end users such as transportation, residential, commercial, and industry. Some oil fuels is also further converted into electricity. Some final energy end users such as industry sector also use primary energy, coal and natural gas, as their final energy demand. Therefore, coal and natural gas are considered as primary energy when they are used to produce electricity, but they are accounted as final energy when they are used by end users. The final energy is consumed by various energy end users, residential, commercial, industry, and transportation from 20 to 2019. Final energy consumption grew at an average rate of 3.1%, as depicted in figure 9, that the majority of final energy is used in productive sectors, i.e. industry and transport sector. And this is 2019, and transportation and the industry is a major. Development of final energy consumption by consuming sector. The accounting of final energy consumption is also made based on type of fuels. Figure 10 on the development of energy consumption by fuels shows that major final energy used in Indonesia are oil fuel, coal, natural gas, LPG, and electricity. Coal and natural gas are used by industry sector. Oil fuels is primarily used for transportation. Small fraction of natural gas is used in residential and commercial. Electricity is used in industry, commercial, and residential. Some fraction of oil fuel is also used in industry. This is main use of oil fuels. The largest share in power generation mix is coal power plants, followed by gas power plants, renewable-based power plants, and oil fuel power plants. Figure 11 shows the power generation mix in 2019, which indicates that in order to reduce GHG emission in power, mitigation actions needs to be focused on coal power plants because of coal is the largest contributor in the generation mix, and coal has the largest emission factor among fossil fuels. Coal is the largest. Figure 12 shows GHG emission estimation for year 20 to 2019, which is estimated based on the energy supply and consumption. During 2019, the average growth rate GHG emission was 3.9% per year. And subsector-wise, energy industry, primarily electricity generation, is the largest emitter, followed by transportation and industry. This is power plant, refinery, and the industry and the transport is a measure. Projection of energy sector development basis for projection. Energy sector development projection used the following assumptions. Annual GDP growth in 2010 to 2020 was 5% and decreased to 1% in 2020 due to COVID-19 pandemic, then gradually increased to 6% in 2025. With the growth of 2025 to 2040 is 5% growth and 2040 to 2050 is 4.5%. This annual economic growth is lower than those assumed in the national energy policy projection, which is 7% to 8%. Therefore, the primary energy projection of LTS LCCR in 2050 is around 600 megaton, lower than that of the KEM, which is 1,000 megaton in 2050. Energy demand will grow in accordance with the development drivers, economic and population. As a result of efficiency measures, the energy intensity of all energy consuming sectors in 2050 will be much less than that of in the base year. In major industry fuels, gas, electricity, oil fuels, coal with CCS, CCUS, the arrangement of CO2 cap will have been implemented. CCS, CCUS business using pipeline transport and tracking are already in place, and CO2 from major industry will be handled by CCS, CCUS. Energy input to industries will be transformed from primary coal and oil fuels to natural gas, renewable, especially in smelter, and electricity in decreasing order. By utilizing CCS, CCUS in industrial fossil fuel energy systems, electrification of industry equipment, and use of renewables, especially hydropower in smelters. GHG emission intensity for industry is expected to be low. However, the level of GHG emission intensity will depend on the carbon content of the electricity supplied by the utility and the access of smelters to the hydropower resources. Implementation of efficiency measures, decarbonization of power using large renewable and coal with CCS, CCUS, and biofuel use in transport will enable energy sector to achieve significant emission reduction. The emissions in energy sector will decline from 1,030 megaton in 2030 to around 572 megaton CO2 in 2050. Power. Demand for electricity comes from residential, commercial, and industry, with a small fraction of the demand comes from transport, train. In the future, significant fraction of electricity will be used by transport, which is expected to shift to electric vehicles. In Indonesia's electricity consumption has grown at an average rate of 5.9% from 135 terawatt-hour in 2009 to 240 terawatt-hour in 2019. Sources 2020, HC 2020. In 2020, Indonesia household electrification reached 98%, which was connected to on-grid large power plants and off-grid electricity smaller plants, most renewables. It is targeted that in the future, all households will have electricity access through grid and non-grid as well as rooftop solar PV. Based on past experience, demand growth of electricity will be around 5% per year. The need for new capacity replacement and transmission expansion will be in line with the demand growth. At present, majority of power generation is fueled by coal, while other power plants use gas, hydropower, and geothermal. It is expected that in 2050, the power sector will nearly decarbonize through utilization of renewables, hydrogen, geothermal, solar, wind, biomass in massive scale. Most coal power plants are equipped with CCS, CCUS, and Biomass core confirming power plants are connected to CCS biomass energy with carbon capture and storage or BECS. Since Indonesia is an archipelago, the power system will be developed in the form of distributed power instead of large centralized system. Power system with various types of power plants and different degree of intermittency will have to copy with grid stability. Therefore, the power sector will require reliable technology and dispatch management that ensure electricity grid stability. Given that BECS is expected to play a significant role in GHG mitigation of power sector, large amount of solid biomass supply for the BECS need to be prepared and developed. Therefore, an integrated land use planning is crucial to ensure sustainable feedback supply of biofuel and wood biomass for BECS. It is envisaged that the power situation in 2050 under LCCP will be as follows. Power generation mix renewable 43%, coal 38%, natural gas 10%, and BECS 8%. The renewables include hydro, geothermal, solar PV, biomass, biofuel, and wind. Around 76% of the coal power plants are equipped with CCS to achieve zero emissions in coal power plants. Installed capacity of renewable power generation mix solar PV 113 gigawatt, hydro 68 gigawatt, geothermal 23 gigawatt, wind power 17 gigawatt, biomass 13 gigawatt, biofuel 14 gigawatt, and BECS 23 gigawatt with negative emissions. The supply availability of some renewable power plants are intermittent, and therefore, in order to have a reliable supply system, it will require integration with continuous stable power supply system, base load, such as the coal power plants. The carbon intensity of power generation 104 grams CO2 per kilowatt hour. Increasing development of off-grid and microgrid. Due to significant portion of intermittent renewable solar and wind will be deployed in the future. It will require development of a smart grid that can handle large supply intensity. Power plant with 100% renewable energy in remote areas will need smart microgrid. Transport. In 2010, the metropolitan population accounts for 18% of the total population and is projected to reach around 25% in 2050, with increased population density in city centers and urban peripheries. The type of land used in all town areas of metropolitan cities can be categorized as mixed land use, where residential development, shops, employment, communities, and recreation facilities, parks, and open space are located close to each other. However, recent development of areas in metropolitan can be categorized as a specialized land use, where industrial area is located outside the city and new housing is built at the periphery of city. In non-metropolitan cities, the land use type can be categorized as mixed land use. Previous spatial distribution of population did not consider transport network since the transport network has not existed. Recently, site selection for new housing complex, especially in metropolitan cities, begin to consider the development of transport networks such as BRT, LRT, dedicated lane for buses, and intermodality. Current transport infrastructure development focused in motorized transport systems, socio-cultural practices, lifestyle, and social status affect transport. Transport infrastructure development has focused on motorized transport system. In the future, the majority of the population will need to use public transport due overloaded traffic by excessive using of private vehicles. Information and communication technology (ICT) development will encourage teleactivity and eventually lessen personal transport load in metropolitan as well as in non-metropolitan cities. Carpooling, which has been partially practiced recently in metropolitan cities, will continue to be implemented. driven by needs such as to avoid traffic jam. The transport sector in the future is envisaged to dramatically change, with the passenger transport mode mostly mass public transport, buses, MRT, LRT in metropolitan buses in smaller cities, trains and big buses for intercity transport, and airport for between metropolitan and inter-island ships and ferries. Meanwhile, freight transport train for intercity trucks, trains, air, and ships for inter-island cargoes, as well as small trucks in cities. The main energy source for transportation are biofuels, oil, fuels, and electricity. Mitigation target in transport will be achieved by electrification of transport, supplying more biofuels for diesel substitute fatty acid methyl ether and biohydrocarbon or green diesel, and gasoline substitute bioethanol, and CPO-based gasoline. And since the past 10 years, the government has introduced biofuels made from CPO, which is blended with petroleum diesel and coal B20, 20% biodiesel plus 80% petroleum diesel. It is envisaged that Indonesian transport situation in 2050 under LCCP will be as follows. Transport distance of non-constrained transport, leisure, social, or family visit in metropolitan is around 10 kilometers. Travel distance of constrained transport, home to work, school, is around 40 kilometers in Jakarta. Some fraction of the workforces are working from home, teleworking, by opening businesses at their homes, such as small shops, maintenance and repair services, and restaurants. The breakdown of transport energy in 2050 are biofuel 46%, oil fuel 20%, electricity 30%, and natural gas 4%. The biofuel CPO-based program is considered successful and will be continued to 2050 by supplying biofuel with higher biodiesel proportions, B30, B40, B50, which will be produced from sustainable sources. Mobility as a service will continue to grow. Household expenditure for transport is around 20% of total household spending. Choice of mode of transport is affected by cost, comfort level, and social status. Many cities are connected by intercity trains, especially in Java. Existing plans show that 3,200 kilometers of train tracks will be built to serve transport in Sumatera, Java, Kalimantan, and Sulawesi. Projection of primary energy supply. The types of primary energy used in Indonesia are coal, oil fuel, natural gas, and renewable. Hydropower, geothermal, solar, wind, and bioenergy. Coal and natural gas are also used as final energy in industry. Natural gas are also used final energy in residential and commercial. It is estimated that from 2010 to 2050, primary energy supply will grow on average around 3% per year. The projections of primary energy by types of energy for the three scenarios are presented in figure 13. The figure shows that CPOS gives the largest energy supply due to largest energy demand, which indicate that current policy will not lead to efficient energy system. The TRNS and LCCP have lower energy supply due to lower energy demand resulted by energy efficiency measures in end users. The scenario that will result in the lowest primary energy supply is the LCCP. Figure 13 shows all energy types will continue to increase until 2050 except for oil. The share of oil will become the lowest in 2050, and this under LCCP, notable change is projected to occur in 2050, where the share of renewable will become the highest in the energy supply. The figure also indicates that even until 2050, the role of coal in energy supply will remain significant, especially in power subsector, which will be equipped with carbon capture and storage CCS systems. Projection of final energy demand. The projection of by type final energy demand for the three scenarios is presented in figure 14. which indicate that there will be significant change toward 2050, i.e., electricity is projected to be the most dominant type of energy. These oil fuels and electricities and the measures that the figure 15, which shows a projection of final energy demand by the consuming sectors, indicate that the distribution of the sectoral energy consumption in 2050 will remain the same with that 2010, and the share of commercial and residential consumption significantly increased in 2050 due to increasing role of commercial sector in economy and increased people of welfare. Projection of electric power generation and grid emission factor. The projection of power generation mix and the associated emission factor of electricity are shown in figure 16, which shows that electricity generation will increase significantly as a result of economic development, people welfare, and population growth. From 2010 to 2050, electricity generation will increase in average 5.5% per year, which is about the same with the average economic growth. This may be the result of electrification of end user, where people prefer electricity than combustion energy systems. Also, because of the development of commercial sector, where its energy consumption is mostly in forms of electricity. Figure 16 shows a significant difference in power generation mix of the three scenarios, that CPOs will rely primarily on coal, while the TRNS and LCCP are more diversified, with LCCP has more coal power plants equipped with CCS, CCS, and renewables, include BECS in 2050, under LCCP, where the share of CCS is significant. The resulting emission factor will be significantly lower than other scenarios. In 2050, energy emission factor of CPOS, TRNS, and LCCP are 502, 295, and 14 grams CO2 per kilowatt hour respectively. And that's all. Thank you.